Good morning, David Lapp here, coming to you live from my office here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Uh, been trying to get on a regular schedule with these webinars or these podcasts, whatever you want to call it. But I've been slipping on that, just staying disciplined, staying on track. So I'm excited to share that I'm going to have Chris Purcell joining me to try to bring in more stability, more keeping things moving, asking questions. It's always easier to have a conversation than to just try to share information. So going forward, we're going to try and do this more on a weekly schedule, like every week, and just have a topic that we discuss. And as we develop this, we don't know where it's going yet, but we're pretty excited to see what happens. So, Chris, if you want to take a few minutes here or a minute and just share a little bit about who you are and just anything you want to share about what's happening here.
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Chris Purcell. Um, I am a development officer with Blessings of Hope, and David and I and the Lapp family have been connected for many years just through nonprofit work with local fire companies. I'm a Lancaster native living in the Ephrata area, and I also, in addition to working at Blessings of Hope, I pastor 2 churches. I'm a seminarian. I have a family in Brownstown, a wife and 2 young children. So uh, I've actually always looked forward to doing something like this and kind of having a podcast format where we could have a conversation. And David and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago and said, yeah, this sounds great. This feels like a calling and an opportunity to just be in conversation and really do some good things to help people receive the word of the Lord and to be present in just how we can help business and nonprofit and all these different things just by being in open conversation and seeing where it goes.
Yeah. And as we were discussing about what we're getting into here, one of the things that Chris brought up, what about if we disagree on a topic? And I was like, hey, that just makes for an interesting show. So we're probably not going to agree on everything, but that's a part of it. That's where we learn from each other, we learn together, and we just want this to be a time of interaction, a time of discussing topics, answering questions, sharing some perspective of what we see. And if you have questions as we go along and you want to drop us a question, there will be a link in the description of wherever you're watching this. There should be a link where you can just click on there, ask us a question. We'll be happy to pick it apart and butcher it and give us your opinion on it. So yeah, there's no question off limits. If you have a question, we'd love to just pick it apart and see where it goes. So yeah, Chris, you want to introduce our topic for today and what we want to talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the conversation that led to this is we were talking about exactly to that question, what happens if we disagree? And there was this conversation of the spirit where, you know, we we need to be willing to disagree more and just be in conversation, and maybe it's not so much about the disagreement, maybe it's not so much about how we see the world differently, but it is about doing the work that matters. So it kind of inspired this idea of our first conversation, which we've kind of subtitled, How Do We Know If What We're Working On Actually Matters to God, or is it just us? Is it just
Yeah.
something that matters to us, right? Um, for me, I was led to James, James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17, which reads from the New King James Version, "What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Depart in peace, be warmed and filled,' but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead."
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah, and
challenging
there's
concept.
so many times we look at what we're doing and we're like yeah, this is pleasing to us. And how do we know that what we're doing is also pleasing to God? I think that's some of what we want to just dive into. And for myself, one of the things that I look at is as I go throughout my day, just trying to stay present to what God is showing us in that moment. Stay in an attitude of prayer, stay in a just a just an openness. People around us can point out things. We can have conversations. We can pray together. We can just discern as we get into situations. What's the right thing to do and what's God showing us in the situation.
Right. I've been recently very led in this conversation, even around the difference between what forms what. Is it our work that forms our faith, or is it our faith that forms our work? Right. So I think that was a big thing for me. And David, I think one of the first questions that I was thinking of is when you think about the phrase work that matters to God, what comes to mind for you? What do you think of when you think work that matters to God?
What came to my mind immediately was, we're put on this earth with a mission that God put into our hearts. And if you look at somebody's tombstone, every tombstone has two dates on it: the date you were born, the date you died. But what's really important on that is the dash in between those two. It doesn't matter how far apart the two dates were when you were born or when you died. The dash in the middle is the same size. And the question is, what did you fulfill in that dash? The time that you were allotted on earth, what did you do with that time? And did that matter? Did that make a difference? Did that impact society for eternity in a positive way or in a negative way? And so often we can get caught up in the day to day, and we can tend to forget that we are here for a purpose. We're here to serve. We're here to make a difference. We're here to build a life for me and my family, but we live in a community where we can impact those around us in a positive way. We can make a difference with the talents and the gifts that God has given us. We can, in that process, as we think about the talents and gifts that God has given us, are we using them for our own gain or for impact, among those living among us? And are we serving people in a way that brings honor and glory to God?
Right. It's so true, and we often get worried about those things on the other end, almost too in depth, right? The birth and then the end, and we are so forgetful about what's in between. I just this weekend at at the churches that I serve, we were in Luke and talking about the difference between the tax collector and the Pharisee and their way of praying, right? And how so often we kind of read that story and we think about it as, you know, I would rather be the humble tax collector, even if I am, not necessarily in all the ways right in this world the way that I need to be. But at the end of the day, it's a spectrum, just like that dash in between the two dates. It's not so much about be the tax collector or don't be the Pharisee. It's more about what's in between, and really living in that spectrum area to find and to be what God is calling you to be, and to live into that, to be present in that idea in a very meaningful way that matters to people. It's
Yeah.
like you said, it's not that we don't want to build a life for our families. It's not that we don't want to be known in a certain way or have the things that we specialize in. But I think I've always lived by the creed of, if we can impact one life for Christ, we've done our work.
hmm
The
And
hope is that we can do a lot more than that.
so often we go through life and we compare we compare our intentions to other people's actions, and we see that, yeah, I would have never done it that way. And we don't recognize that we're not in that person's shoes. So if we have different information, we're going to have a different outcome. And we can say what we would have done. I've heard the saying, on or the term of a Monday morning football coach. You know what the coach should have done yesterday after you saw the game, but if you're in the middle of the game, it's a different thing to discern where you need to go in the moment than it is to look back and say, yeah, I would have done that differently yesterday. I mean, if we could see a day ahead of time and know everything that's going to happen, and if you're watching from the sidelines, it's so much easier to tell people how it should be done than if you actually get in the game and you make a difference where you're called to make a difference.
So true. And sometimes it's about stepping back from thinking about it as our thing and thinking about it as God's thing, right? Kind
Yeah.
of, we're always asking ourselves the question, what am I doing for God? But maybe we really should be asking the question, what is God doing through me? So that we
Mhm.
can be constantly giving all the credit back to God.
Yeah. Yeah, we are put on this earth to serve. We are put on this earth to make a difference while we're here. And for you that could look different. We each have an assignment on earth, and if we compare, the Bible says if we compare ourselves among ourselves, we're not wise. And too often we look at, well, I'm doing this, so you should be doing this too. And I think we completely forget that God put us here on earth to impact where He called us to impact.
Right.
So yeah, any final thoughts on that, Chris, before we wrap it up?
No, I think this was a good conversation. I'm glad we were able to do this. It's just important that we're always aware of the work being formed out of our faith, and I think that's a lot of what we're doing together through Blessings of Hope, what we do in our own churches, and all the ways of just living. So I think it's just a matter of constantly having that lens of letting our faith and God spill out through us, so that we can make sure that um, we're always doing what God is working and entitling us to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely there's definitely so many opportunities to make a difference, to make an impact, and to serve where we're called to serve. So as we wrap up here, if you have questions that come out of this, feel free to shoot us a message on the link in the description, and we'll look at the question. Like I said, we'll pull it apart. We'll give us our thoughts on it, and that'll either hopefully answer your questions or bring up more. We are on a journey to learn. We're on a journey to serve. We're on a journey to impact society for eternity. And we're here today to make an impact for future generations. And if we can remember that we are not here to serve ourselves, we're not here to just for what we can get out of this, but we're here to serve God's kingdom and to make an impact for while we're able to do that. So yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Chris, for joining us today. Thank you for watching. And we're going to try to do these more on a regular schedule, hopefully on more like a Tuesday, late morning kind of a thing. So we haven't fully worked out our schedules yet, but that's what we're shooting for. And we'll probably move that around some as well. But hopefully, with Chris keeping me online a little bit more here, we can stay a little more focused and scheduled on that. So thank you for watching. Thanks for joining us, Chris.